Okay, dear friends of love for volleyball, amor por el voleibol, I'm pleased to talk today with a North American player and trainer who during her time in the national team achieved numerous successes. Bronze Olympic medalist in Barcelona 92, member of the Volleyball Hall of Fame, etc., etc. And I mean Caren Kemner, who is currently with us today talking about volleyball. Hello, Caren, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm glad to do this. Thank you so much.
So great. Please, first of all, Caren, please tell me when you started playing volleyball and why do you choose volleyball as your sport?
My first real interaction with volleyball was probably at the elementary age. I would say like maybe 7th or 8th grade, but it was very, very casual, like just about 11 of us on the court on each side back in the day. But my real passion for it started in high school. Okay. I prefer to think that volleyball picked me. I had a fierce love of softball, and I thought softball was going to be my future. In high school, I went to a high school camp, and little by little, this unbelievable sport of volleyball just captured everything that I loved about it. I loved the athleticism, I loved the speed, I loved the intellect. I really enjoyed the people I played with. It didn't mean that I didn't enjoy softball. The volleyball just kind of, like I said, I think it picked me. I think it looked at me, 30 something years ago, 40 years ago, and said, you're built for this game. And it quickly became, it quickly took over my life and took me to a new place in sports.
Fantastic. And how was your experience in your time when you played in college and when you started playing? What was the experience playing with another college? I know that in the United States there's many college, especially female college who plays volleyball. How was your experience in this time?
The entire process, just even getting to college was overwhelming. Again, I go back to the fact that I'm 55, so you look back a little bit, and the recruiting process is so different than as to what it is now. It went from me feeling like I was probably going to go to my local college here in Quincy, Illinois, to suddenly every door opened up collegiately at every division. I ended up choosing the University of Arizona. I fell in love with it. I was there for a little over 3 semesters. And then after the '84 Olympics is when I had the opportunity to move to the national team. My experience in Arizona was wonderful. I loved playing what then would be the Pac-10, I believe is what we called it. I think now it's the Pac-12. It was, again, I think about just how much I've grown from that young girl in a small city who it was more of the athleticism that I found that took me to that next level. And then I had to learn how to play the game. Like a lot of people I always took a lot of credit and a passion for passing and playing backcourt. But when I think back to college, I never played backcourt. My first backcourt experience of passing and playing defense wasn't until I joined the national program. Okay. So it was a very, very large learning curve for me.
I know. Here in Chile in the 80s, in the beginning of the 80s, we saw sometimes in ESPN channel some college volleyball. We didn't know that there was so huge volleyball teams like the female Olympic team from Alice Eilinger with Paula Weishoff, Rita Crockett, and the male team. So after the Olympics, we started watching fantastic volleyball of the United States, and we began to see another kind of volleyball because we are used to watch the volleyball from Brazil, from Argentina, and sometimes many volleyball from Europe. But American volleyball, we didn't know so much until this time. But we knew then that also in beach volleyball, you were many times before making great experiences, many great plays where we're getting on the beach, making their best plays. And then you told me when you joined the national team, how was this for you? Because you were from the college, the experience, then joined the national team with the greatest players in USA, and joined a circuit from so many great another volleyball teams around the world, the Russian, the Chinese, the Brazilian, the Peruvian. How was it for you?
It was overwhelming. For me, my first really experience even watching the national team was at DePaul University when I was in high school. The USA women's team played, I believe, Japan. I can't say it, but I remember sitting up in the rafters of this gym thinking, oh, maybe someday that will be me. Lo and behold, about 5 years later, I had the opportunity to meet. Like, I remember trying to put my shoes on. I was invited to Dakota to Casa to train with the 84 team, or at least have Ari take a look at me. And I was terrified, like literally terrified. I remember sitting next to Flo Hyman, somebody that I idolized as a child, and I couldn't tie my shoes because I was sitting next to Flo Hyman, and I just kept looking at her like, you're the reason that I'm here, And then there was Rita Crockett, Lori Cobelli, Sue Woodstraw. There was just countless, like Rose Majors, like that whole crew that was there in '84 for me is really the precedent that moved me forward in this sport. I was asked at that time to kind of consider coming back and training with them instead of going to college, and there was no way. I was terrified. I didn't know how to roll. Like, and those guys will all admit to that. Like, Ari asked me to do a roll defensively, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that, and I don't want to hurt anybody. But in '85, after the '84 Olympics completed, I went to a tryout and was asked then to make that decision to leave college early and go to the national program. And again, it was overwhelming. It was also an honor. I tell kids now, like, looking back, I think the greatest difference that we have in our cultures versus 30 years ago is medicine has also brought us a lot farther. Like in the old days, if you blew your knee out, your career was over. You had a nasty scar from the top of your quad to the middle of your shin, and you never jumped again. Well, now kids are getting ACL surgeries, and they're back within 10 months. So I think that was part of it for me too, was just, that door cracked open and I walked through it and said, okay, I'm going to try to do this. God is obviously giving me some athleticism, and I'm going to see how far it goes. It was a challenge at the very beginning, but again, I felt like I was just a sponge, just taking it in as quickly as I could, even in that early Olympics in '88, like just overwhelmed by the talented people who were playing playing this game on both the men and the women's side.
Exactly. And as you were saying about the knee scratches, but I remember you didn't use knee pads. Am I right or no? You didn't use knee pads like culturally,
nope.
and I
that's
think...
where I learned it from.
Okay.
Because in the gym where we trained, we had Karch, Red, Timmons, Buck, all those guys on that side training, like literally on the other side of the curtain. And when I first joined the '85 program, like after that, we didn't have tons of athletes in our training form for the women just yet. A lot were in college, they were finishing up and then coming to us. So I spent a lot of time looking through that screen, trying to learn from them. And one of the persons that I probably most emulated or tried to was obviously Karch. And that was because of his passing capabilities. Like, again, I didn't know how to pass. I didn't know how to play defense. These were all things I was trying to learn at a pretty high rate of speed. And not only did I not like wearing knee pads, like I sweat a lot. So I didn't want these big, like, thermoses hanging on my legs. But I just tried to pick from different people around me the ability to learn the game faster, which I think really worked out pretty well.
Yes, I know. We in Chile, we do the same. Many players, as I, when I was 18 years old, stopped playing with knee pads because we saw Karch and we wanted to emulate him because he plays so fantastic. And tell me, please, Caren, about your time in the U.S. national team. What would you say were your favorite championship? I don't know, maybe the Barcelona Olympics or maybe another championship.
Well, obviously Barcelona. I think all the Olympics were really special because all of them were very educational in their process. Like the first one was definitely overwhelming. We were a young team. 92, we were much better hitting our stride as a unit. I would say the Grand Prix that same year, we ended up winning. And so I think that was kind of setting us in motion to what we'd hoped. I still think, you know, and I know there's a lot of things that could have came in place for us getting to the gold medal match in '92, but I definitely think we had a team that would have competed very high in that final match. But, you know, again, I was really excited for our program to get that bronze medal and get back to getting on the stand after everything that the '84 team did, getting the silver medal. That was something very personal to me. I wanted to kind of continue the success of a program. So I would definitely say '92 was obviously very special. '96 was special because it was the one Olympics that I was allowed to play, not allowed, that my family was able to come to and see firsthand what I did. Like, it was one thing for them to come to matches when we played at different places in the States, but really to experience the Olympics as a whole and that energy and that vibe. It's hard to explain, but I know that it meant the world to my family to have that experience.
Yes, I understand it perfectly. I was also a player, and my family or my friends, my closest friends, watched me to see my games. It was very intense, and because a lot of emotions were there, and we are always happy to see that somebody who loves you are backing you up and shouting for you. It's fantastic. I understand you perfectly. And when you tell me about your Olympics experience, and you played in a time where so many great teams were playing, the Cubans, the Russian teams, the Brazilian teams,
the Chinese,
the Japanese teams. They were so strong. And do you have some teams you do not like to play against, or vice versa? Some teams you knew you were always win against them?
Well, I don't know if there was anybody I didn't like. I think there was always times where I knew it was going to be a fierce battle. And if I look from '85 until my retirement in '97, I have such an appreciation for how far we came as a program and how far I came as a player. And I think that's what I appreciated the most. Again, I go back to the story of being able to watch the men on the other side of the curtain and learn from them. You know, I did play in a tremendous window of great national teams like Peru. I mean, I continue to look back at these pictures and these people that you share on your website, on your Facebook, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I remember them. And it was such an amazing window, but that window taught me every single time I competed against somebody, whether we won or lost, I learned something. You know, you have to look across that net or that court or that field as an athlete to be able to get better. You have to visualize yourself doing something that is happening to you. And I think that's what I did. I mean, I can't say I loved playing Cuba, but at the same time I did, because there was tremendous mutual respect between Carvajal, myself, and Maria. Like, I knew how good they were, and I did respect that. And in turn, they made me a better player, and I think they mutually respected me for that. Like, we were going to go to war against each other, but at the end of the game, I felt like I was a part of a special moment in time seeing these phenomenal women compete. And the same with having the opportunity to play for Long Ping. And it was such an amazing window of time, you know, for all. I mean, just crazy. Like, you could start listing names and I can go, yep.
Incredible. It's like for me, in my job I'm doing with my fan page, I'm new and every day. More players, as you told us, many fantastic players, historic players, actually players, and as you say, I watch the pictures and I see how can I get, or how was I am capable to talk with them. They were my stars when I was younger, or when I was in the national team, and they played Olympics, they played World Championships, and it's amazing for us, and I know from my many followers. So as we talk, you're playing in this fantastic team. You also have the opportunity to play from the beginning of the 80s to past the 90s, and volleyball changed so much. The rules changed, the ball changed, the size of the players changed. How was this experience for you? How was it for you?
Yeah, I remember when they were bringing in point per serve,
Mm-hmm.
rally scoring. I want to say it was before the 92 Olympics. I would say in the 90s somewhere. And we had practiced it a couple times at practice, and we're like, oh, we don't like this. But now I see kids when they look back at some of the vintage videos that we put online of the old days, where you had to obviously serve to score a point. And they'd be like, Coach, how did you make this? And I'm like, you had to be in shape. You had to be able to pass. You had to be able to side out. It was a very different game. And, forces wanted to speed up the pace of the game, which I kind of understand. I think the longest game I ever played in was almost 3 hours against China on the East Coast in the casino. I remember they were up on us in the 5th game, like by a lot. And we came back just about won. Okay. And again, that was rally scoring in that 5th game. And I remember the casino was kind of irritated with us because the people should have been out gambling. Instead, they were in watching our game, and it was packed. But it, again, watching the evolution of the game, the creation of the libero, obviously the size of athletes. When I started, I was considered tall, and no disrespect to Lori Endicott, but by the end, I was down there by Lori on the other end with my setter because our players were getting taller and taller too. But obviously, historically, if you look at Russia and some of the size of the women that they were able to produce. Artemanova was, I consider, a giant, when I played against her. And what a wonderful, nice person, extremely great athlete, but even better people off the court. And I think that's the part that I missed the most when I retired, was not knowing I wasn't going to run into these incredible women anymore.
I have talked with many of these fantastic players, female players, and they always tell me what you're saying about the kindness of the relationship between different teams, between you, the Cubans and the Brazilians. Even when in the court, you were in a war between each others. But outside the court, there were many kind relationships. You were sometimes made great friendship between many other, and also many of you played in Europe, for example, in Japan, with this enemy, as you call it, in court. So as you're saying, volleyball for me and I think for many people is it's a special sport. It's a very social sport, very respectful sport, even when sometimes we see very big fights, especially, for example, between the Cubans and the Brazilian. This
I remember that
historical fight against this both team. And
there were times I would bark through the net too. Like, there was times at Cuba, Brazil, we all got after it too. But there was also a point, and I especially remember 96 when Mariah and Magali came up to me and they said, "Hey, Caren, we got this." And I'm like, you know what? We do. We're fine. I respect you. You understand where I'm coming from. I get that people are going to chirp through the net. And I just felt like after 12 years of playing the game, you weren't going to chirp at me anymore. Like, I'd earned my stripes. I'll go to war. I'll make my mistakes, and I will respect you when it's done. And in turn, I wanted that same respect.
Fantastic. That's because I love volleyball. And Caren, tell me, please, when did you start thinking or mentalizing about you staying in volleyball to make this transition from an active player to a coach? When did you start thinking about this, and why?
I don't know if it ever really came to me like, oh, I've got to do this. Like, I felt when I retired that somehow I was going to stay in the game. Whether it was USA Volleyball and assisting there, or I don't know. I do know that there was a point in time where I honestly looked at myself and I didn't want anything to do with sports for a little bit. I felt like I lost myself in athletics, and I was deeply searching for the person that existed inside of me separate from that. So there was a long time where I had really nothing to do with sports. I kind of stayed in the shadows on purpose of, again, just trying to revisit and say, okay, I am funny, I am nice, I am polite, like all those things that sports kind of makes you tuck away a little bit. And then when you realize you're retiring, you've got to rediscover yourself. Not having the athleticism and that go-to that is your identity. So safe to say that I've also spent a lot of time away from sport. Really, me getting back into sports in the last 10 years is because I moved home to take care of my parents.
Yes.
And I started out kind of small. I was coaching some 11-year-olds, which was actually quite humorous because I didn't know what to say to 11-year-olds in timeouts. But it was a great experience. It let me have fun again with the game and try to remind kids that we're all fortunate. If you're in athletics, you're fortunate enough to play a game. There are different levels of that game that require different commitment and, I don't want to say work ethic, but a different degree of passion and commitment that is expected of you. So now, being at the college level, I mean, I started here at Culver Stockton coaching the women, and I switched over to the men a couple of years ago. It's really fun for me because I have a clear understanding of the more rounded concept. Like, I really want these kids to get a great education. I really want them to enjoy this moment in time because we live in a very interesting world that's changing all the time. And when they leave here, whether it's the women that I've coached or the men that I coach, I want them to have an impact on the world outside of the sport, but knowing this is the sport that brought us together.
Yes. Yesterday I watched with my son a movie about a basketball coach in a high school college in the United States in Richmond. He was, I think, Samuel L. Jackson. He was coaching a basketball team with the players have many college problems to assist the classes. But I love the way he was teaching the students, the players, to get to study more, to be respectful, to respect the teachers, and so on. So I think what you're saying is fantastic because volleyball, it's not only a sport, it's a way of life. And I know that in the United States, the sports and college especially is a way to get into universities and to make a living, to study something. So it's very different as in Chile. But I respect this way you are making this for your children, for your players, because you're not only teaching them to play a sport, you're teaching them to be a human being, a respectful human being, as you say, with the community, especially in these times, in these strange times.
Well, I hope I am, because I also tell them too, there's a lot of things I did in my past that I don't want to see you do. I messed up a lot too.
We were young.
I was a character when I played. Sure enough, I know I've gotten in a lot of trouble through my years. But again, it comes back to just learning a better perspective of myself and what I hope for kids as they move forward. And I think more than anything is having an understanding that, like, for example, what happened to me in athletics, being the opportunity to be in the Olympics and play professional, happens to a very, very, very small percentage of people.
Yes.
Especially on the female side. And sometimes I look back and I realize I missed out on that window in college to kind of continue growing up or learning these different things. But at the same time, I had an opportunity where the world became my education. I remember my first trip was to Paris, and I saw the Eiffel Tower, and I was 19 years old, and I'm like, wow, this is happening. Even then, looking back on it, like all the tremendous trips and the stories, and I know my kids get sick of it, and so my coaches and friends, because I'm always telling like random stories like, oh, I remember this one time. But that's what makes it so special. And more than anything, I want us to get back to a place where athletics is a good place and academics are important, and the culture ourselves and the world we live in has to get back to being in a good place.
Exactly. So important what you're saying. And your kids, what are they think about you when they know that you are a Olympic athlete? What do you think about you as a coach?
I think they think I'm pretty funny. There are times, like even the coaching staff or different people that I've met, or kids are like, "Coach, I saw you on YouTube." I'm like, "Stop looking at YouTube." Like, like my hair was different then. I was in shape, but at the same time, it's a compliment, and I'm glad that there's kind of that information out there for kids to go back and have respect for the people that came ahead of you in the game. Exactly. And I think that might be sometimes too of my tick when I look at athletics, especially today. I don't know if kids appreciate how much took place before they had this opportunity to be there. Like for myself, like I told you before, I had tremendous respect for the '84 Olympic team. Yes. I remember on a train ride in Italy with Rita Crockett, sitting next to her and thinking, "Oh my God, she hates me." And we ended up having this great conversation of me looking at her saying, "You were my idol. That's why I'm in this game." And I think we do a pretty good job of it in the United States. But again, I continually try to talk to kids like there was a whole big cycle that took place before you got here. And if you even look at the ethnicity in different sports like baseball, football, all these things had to take place for you to have this moment. Yes. And I just don't want you to blow this moment and understand that this moment is honestly bigger than you. And the person that you present you with is probably the most important thing that you can hold on to.
Yes. For example, I spoke with many young players, Chilean young players, and we talk about that today when you say Michael Jordan, when you say Magic Johnson, when you say Roger Federer, in different sports, you know them. But when you tell them about, for example, Alexander Sabin, Vladimir Kondra, Craig Buck, they not many times they know them. So my task, my mission is to present, especially young people around the world in Chile, that before them, as you were saying, there were so many sports, so many volleyball. I have the opportunity to interview Chilean players who played in the 50s, in the 60s. So it's fantastic because in this awesome time, especially in Chile, we didn't have nothing in media. Some parents took pictures. So I think it's so important, especially to our young generation, to teach them that before them there were so many volleyball and so great volleyball with other rules. With other volleyball, other physical players, but I think it's very important to teach them because history, I think, is so important for us in many issues, in many aspects. So talking about this, about your training career, what do you think? And what your personal opinion about what is happening today in volleyball in USA, especially in female volleyball? Because I know that maybe this year you're going to have a volleyball league, a volleyball as in Italy, as in Europe, and my question is about that. I don't know why, but in volleyball in the United States, you sometimes make different rules. For example, the libero can serve, for example. So why do you do this in the United States, and how will gonna maybe affect this in the national league that you have some months ago?
I don't know. I mean, I try to pay attention to it all. I mean, try is a really bad word. I do pay attention to it all. I just try not to have too many opinions on it because I think there's a lot of people out there behind the scenes that are putting a lot of effort into why libero serving is beneficial, why it's not. I would love for us to have a successful professional league. I know we've been trying for years to get it mainstream, and I've always found it kind of a struggle that when the Olympics on, one of the most widely viewed sports is volleyball.
So why don't you have a national league? It's so strange. I can't understand this.
Well, I again, this is just my opinion, and hopefully I don't get kicked off Facebook or wherever. I just think in the American culture, we're kind of we're inundated with your big three sports: football, basketball, baseball.
Exactly.
Soccer has made huge strides.
Yes.
Which is awesome. It's just a really hard group to break into because it's the funding. Where's the funding going to come from? If you want to put your money into this, you want to make sure you get the best rewards.
Exactly.
And I understand that. I do. But at the same time, if you're only serving Coca-Cola, people are only going to drink Coca-Cola until you put a different drink on the table.
Yes.
But that's just the cycle of how we work in America. And that's what's so exciting for me when the Olympics come around, because people have a chance to have something different to digest.
Yes.
And explore like all the different sports that are in the Olympics. When you have a chance, like I remember the old days, they used to have the red, white, and blue channels for the Olympic channels, and you could see all these different sports. I feel fortunate that I play volleyball because it is widely viewed when the Olympics come on. I feel sad that some sports like archery, they may be done before the torch is even lit to open the games, and nobody would even know that sport exists unless you're really in that sport. We just have a tremendous, as a world, have a tremendous amount of different sports out there that all mean different things to us. Like I remember living in Brazil, like, okay, in Italy, soccer is Sunday. Like,
yes.
there's church and then there's soccer. And it's such a different culture. And the same thing like going on living in Japan, where volleyball is right up there with sumo. Everybody has a different taste. I would like to think that we can continue to move ahead in America. I mean, obviously we have an American Women's Basketball League, which is great. I just think it's a tough one. There's lots of different opinions on how it should be done and what should be done and if it's going to be done. Yes. And I don't sit at that table, but I wish it would.
It's so strange, as we're telling you, because here in Chile we are so few volleyball players and volleyball fanatics. Even when there are a great championship, many people go there to the gym, and it's full to watch volleyball. And I think the United States is so much bigger as our country. So many players play volleyball, especially female players. You have beach volleyball all around the country. So I can understand why. I understand the financial things.
The politics and the demographics.
Politics, exactly.
The politics, the money, and the demographics are all in different rooms.
But with so many players and also with so many gold medals. For example, I interviewed an Argentinian player. He told me the same. For them, it's very hard because they have so few medals, Olympic medals or world champion medals in volleyball. But you in the United States have so many medals. You're so big, female and male teams. And so it's for me very hard to understand why you're not why volleyball is not in the same level of NBA. I don't know, NHL. It's a strange.
I wish it would
question.
too. I just think there's. I don't want to say people behind pulling strings. I think there's a concerted effort to really move volleyball into that mainstream culture.
Yes.
I just think there's always going to be a little pushback because if there's another sport that's popular, it might push somebody else out of the way, or it might reduce the viewing capability over here. And especially like now that I coach men's volleyball the last couple of years, absolutely love it. Like men's volleyball, even though I slightly resisted it in the beginning because I was on the women's side, the growth of men's volleyball and boys volleyball is astronomical. And yet you have programs like Stanford who let go a national championship program. Like, I don't know where everybody's at, but obviously not everybody's sitting in the same room.
Well, we hope all around the world, all the people who love volleyball, that will this change, and we wish you success with the national league. And tell me about, we'll keep talking about your coaching experience and getting back to your play experience. You told me that, for example, you admire Flo Hyman, Rita Crockett, so fantastic players. Do you have another or many other players when you start to play, you admire and you want to be like them?
I wish I could tell you I remember all their names.
Okay.
That's part of my challenge. There was a Chinese setter when I first started playing. I can see her. She was phenomenal. I mean, she had played with the Chinese national team. I believe she was a setter for Long Ping's team when they were in the '84 Olympics. Like I said, I can't remember their names, but she was just phenomenal. I think that's my challenge, is obviously as I get older, just having memory, but two, just putting all the names and the faces back together. Like, obviously there was a tremendous window of time. Like I said, I wish I could jump like Maria Luis. I wish I could block like Ojienko from Russia. From Russia. Yes. Like, I wish I could serve like Anna Moser. I wish I could run off of one leg like Paula Weishoff did. Like, there's so many tremendous players that all had little different pieces to the game that were so special. And I feel like I did a pretty good job of trying to pick what I could do, not pick like intentionally, but absorb what I could do and try to put it into my own game. And I think that's what helped me become a really good all-round player. Yes. Not just like, I know people have a lot of respect for my hitting ability, but honestly, my passion was playing defense and passing, because it was the skills that came to me latest, at the very end. Like, nothing made me happier than playing defense and hitting out of the back row and blocking, because everybody's a pretty good hitter. I mean, there's obviously great hitters, and then there's this middle pool. I'd like to think I was leaning toward the better end of the hitters, but I do think that one of my gifts to the game was just the ability to be on that court and do whatever position was required of me for our team to be successful.
Yes. Well, thanks. Today we have YouTube and we can watch these fantastic games. And tell me, Caren, what do you think, or what's going on today with COVID in for example, in your college? What's happening with volleyball today, and what do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
Oh gosh, I'd like to win the lottery before I answer that question. I don't know. I think colleges are doing their absolute best, and not just for athletics, but for every college student on the campus, for every high school student, for every elementary student, that our priority should be keeping kids safe and healthy and keeping them in the classroom to study. What I kind of am seeing, and I don't know if this is right, and I talked to some of our coaches here, when we have put a halt to sports, I think we've disconnected that social structure that some of these kids are looking for, because on campuses you're already kind of isolated because you're trying to reduce the spread of COVID, which makes complete sense. But then you disconnect this one plug of sport. Now you've removed like that one last connection that we've had. So I know people really want to get back to having sports and everything, but I just want us to get back to a more normal lifestyle in general. And I'm not saying the old lifestyle was great. I think we can find a better place to be, not just in athletics, but socially, obviously, politically, all those things kind of fit on the same thing. I think colleges are doing their very best, but I think we still have rough days ahead of us. And I hope we don't lose faith in what's good about what we're trying to do. It's just that there's extenuating factors out there that we can't control. I know we're getting to a point now here in the US where the vaccinations are rolling out, which is awesome, but that still doesn't make all the problems go away. We still have cultures where we need to do better things.
Okay. You were changing the subject. You were introduced in the Volleyball Hall of Fame. It's for us in Chile, in South America, it's a very American way to do things. The Volleyball Hall of Fame, the national, the Airplanes Hall of Fame.
Everybody's got a Hall of Fame.
Exactly, but I think it's very important, as we talked before, about the respect for the history of sports. In this case, how was it for you to be introduced in this fantastic list of historical players?
It was awesome. I didn't know if it was ever going to really happen. Here I'm in that 50s zone. I'm like, man, maybe I'm just better in my mind than I really was. Obviously, it's just very emotional to get to that point, because it's a reward on how you viewed your career. Like I viewed my career as very good, but there's a lot of people that have to take a look at you and say, are you worthy of this?
Okay.
I was really grateful for it because also my entire family came, which was really special. I just wish it would have happened before my dad passed. But my mom was able to be there and my brothers and sisters, and that made it even more special. So I'm just glad it happened, and I'm not trying to cry. And obviously I got to go in with Zaitza and, oh my God, who's my Australian friend, Natalie Cook.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
That was a part of my class, which was even more special because they're amazing athletes and amazing people, and it was really neat to share that with them.
Fantastic. As I was telling you all our interview, I respect all what you're saying because I feel the same. I feel the same about the passion that we feel in volleyball, especially with our parents, with our friends, with our brothers, because they make us us great. They support us. My sons make sport too, and we love this as we're playing with them in the same court. So for me, it's fantastic to watch you, to talk with you, and as I was saying out of camera, for many people maybe don't know, you follow my fan page from some times ago. When I saw, for example, a like that said Caren Kemner, I thought, is this the real Caren Kemner? I think some years ago, I write to you and ask you, are you the real Caren Kemner who plays in the national from USA? So for me, it's a fantastic opportunity, a fantastic honor to talk with you, and being able to know what you think about volleyball, what you think about life in volleyball as a coach, as a person, as a player. That's for me the most important things, because I can post photos, but I'm most interested in knowing the person behind the volleyball player. And for me, it's a fantastic honor to especially know people like you in the United States. I have the incredible opportunity to talk with Tom Sorensen some weeks ago with Kurt Kirley. I will post this interview very soon with Lori Kimura, Paula Weishoff, and Rose Majors. So fantastic players that I saw in YouTube. Or my father was a volleyball coach. He was with the Chilean national team in Peru in 1982. He saw all these teams. Wow. He saw Ari Selinger. He saw Flo Hyman. I talked with Cecilia Tait, Maria Luis, and they talked me about your teams, about you. So for me, it's incredible. It's like a dream come true. So
you just named a whole bunch of tremendous people right there.
Incredible.
And again, for my window into the sport, they're the bloodline. They're what drew me in. They're what make me happy. They're the passion that they share, the ability that they play. Like Cecilia Tate, like her and her left arm and her shot angle, I'll never forget it. I mean, obviously I saw it a lot in '88, but I mean, she just had a great, that whole, like Natalia and Gabby, like they're just, again, I think it's wonderful to have that respect for the game, but more so to have respect for the people that play it, because all of us have had challenges in every step of our career. Sometimes people don't want to hear about it. They just want to see the good side. Well, trust me, there's a bad side too. But the wonderful side for me is having the opportunity to say that I consider these people friends and tremendous educators in our sport, and how to play the match, and just how to be good people. It's somewhere at the end of the day, I feel like I was a part of the history, and I take that very personal. I'm very proud of that.
Fantastic. I'm so glad to talk with you, Caren. I finally want to thank you a lot again and again for your time, for your words. Thank you again. I'm so happy to meet you, and I invite you to keep in touch, to keep watching my reviews, to send me photos or whatever you want, because my fan page or my channels are a community, and I'm so happy to have friends to talk with so fantastic players from past and from this day. So I thank you so much, Caren. I sent you many good wishes for you, for your family, health wishes, especially in these times. And okay, I hope we keep in touch and send you the best regards for you.
My best to you, and thank you so much for taking this time and everything you're doing for volleyball. That's pretty cool.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.